Hello and welcome to the coronavirus lockdown live stream, the show that brings welcome levity to the end of the world, lifting the spirits of many of you currently in self-isolation by infecting as many as possible with comfort and distraction as the apocalypse unfolds. If you are watching this after the fact on YouTube, this will seem like a perfectly flawless introduction, but for those of you who have been watching along on the live stream, you'll know that I've completely cocked things up this morning. I ran the intro titles and then forgot to turn on my camera. So I did maybe 2 minutes of intro going through some of the comments and wondered why I was getting comments through saying we can't see you or hear you, and then realized I'd not switched on my camera. So I do apologize about that. How are you all doing? Are you all surviving the apocalypse? Because obviously, early in the coronavirus crisis, Stephen Lett jumped all over the doomsday potential of the whole thing by suggesting this was the last days of the last days, the final part of the last days of the final part of the last days. But of course, in subsequent materials, Robert Lucioni kind of climbed down or attempted to climb down a bit from that. I'm holding Stephen Lett's hand to the flame on this, I'm afraid. I'm keeping them to their word on this. You don't get to say this is the end of the world and then just say, maybe it isn't, maybe it's just another event in history. So let's stick with the intro comments for now. Good to see. All right, so already we're getting production issues. Your volume is very low. What can I do about that? Is that better? Okay, I'm getting a few nods from the green room, which is well populated, it must be said, by a plethora of online talent. So yes, apparently the volume is a bit better now. Yeah, Diana. Oh, crumbs. There's a Jacek is a name that I'm familiar with from my work on the Polish Exodus, by the way. Yeah, so Diana Moreno says that is much better. I was reading a few comments before, and I'll read them again, I guess. Rianne says, you need coffee or something else. I do have coffee, and I'll be drinking and imbibing from my plate of peanut butter on toast unapologetically, because as and I'm not making excuses for my tardiness earlier. I have literally just rolled out of bed, so I do apologize, and I do need caffeine. So yes, I think that was pretty much it. Oh yeah, I need to give a shout out to Alicia Giordano, who is vertical, it seems, in New Jersey, despite it being 2:30 a.m. Welcome, Alicia. And thank you for watching all the way over there in New Jersey, despite the odd time. Heidi Kelly saying it's the evening in Vancouver, Canada. So welcome to those of you who are watching from time zones where this is a very unsociable lockdown live stream. But we're here and we're going to do a show. And I customarily start the show with a reading, and at the moment I'm reading from Take Back Your Life by Janja Lalic and Madeline Tobias. Incidentally, I'm hoping to have Janja Lalic on the channel within the next couple of weeks, so we'll see what happens there. I've been reading from chapter 6, Leaving a Cult, and I'll just sum up. There's just 1 or 2 paragraphs left, and then I'm going to switch straight into the next chapter, which is titled Taking Back Your Mind. But in chapter 6, the final paragraphs are headed Evaluating Your Involvement. The following sets of questions have proven helpful to former cult members trying to make sense of their experiences. Review these questions periodically as you travel on the road to recovery. They will lead to new insights and a deeper level of understanding. Reviewing your recruitment. What was going on in your life at the time you joined the group or met the person who became your abusive partner? I think for many of us, or at least for myself, it's about being roped into it from childhood, isn't it? How and where were you approached? What was your initial reaction to or feeling about the leader or group? What or who first interested you in the group or leader? Again, for me, my parents. Were you misled during recruitment? If so, how? I guess it wouldn't be a cult if you weren't misled, would it really? What did the group or leader promise you? Did you ever guess it? What didn't they tell you that might have influenced you not to join had you known? Why did the group or leader want you? And then understanding the psychological influences used in the group. Which techniques of influence were used by your group or leader? Chanting, meditation, sleep deprivation, isolation, drugs, hypnosis, criticism, fear, or other. List each one and how it served the group's purposes. Interestingly, I don't know about chanting, but in the second of the coronavirus-related reports on jw.org, they, of course, encourage a mantra. David Splain there suggesting that witnesses repeat certain words to themselves, which is very interesting. What was the most effective, least effective? What practices are you still following that are difficult to give up? Are you able to see any effects on you when you engage in these practices? What are the group's beliefs and values? How did they come to be, your beliefs and values? So I'm going to, okay, there's a few questions here under examining your doubts, which are maybe pertinent. What are your doubts about the group or leader now? Do you still believe the group or leader has all or some of the answers? Are you still afraid to encounter your leader or group members on the street? Do you ever think of going back? What is going on in your mind when that happens? Do you believe your group or leader has any supernatural or spiritual power to harm you in any way, physically or spiritually, now that you have left? Do you believe God or some higher being curses you for having left the group? The answers to this last set of questions will help you assess to what extent the cult's influence may still be operating within you. We switch to chapter 7, Taking Back Your Mind. The simple realization that you were in a cult is often a shock. No one knowingly joins a cult or believes that she is in one. Accepting this truth may take months or even years. It can be painful to acknowledge that you were betrayed, taken advantage of, duped, or abused. It can injure your mental and emotional integrity, causing fear and rage. Cult exploitation is an assault on your true sense of self. Because of this, many former cult members do not want to recognize that they were in such a group or relationship. Denial is common among former members who do not seek exit counseling or education about cults. Knowledge of cults gives you the language to explain to yourself what happened and a framework for understanding your involvement. Unless you accept the experience as a cultic one, you might not make time for education, introspection, and insight, possibly prolonging the unwanted after effects of your involvement. If you question whether or not you were in a cultic group or relationship, here are several things you might do to settle your mind. Review characteristics associated with cultic groups. See Appendix A. Make a list of Robert Lifton's 8 thought reform themes. See Chapter 3. And determine whether any of them apply to your situation. Review Margaret Singer and Louis West's list of typical cult indoctrination techniques. See Chapter 3. And determine whether any of them were used. Analyze your group through Janja Lalich's four-part framework of charismatic authority, a transcendent belief system, systems of influence, and systems of control. See Chapter 1. Once you admit that you were in a cult, you can begin to recognize the complexities of your involvement and the unfairness of having been betrayed or exploited. The feelings that may result are normal responses to trauma, including shock and denial, then grief responses, hurt, guilt, shame, fear, and anger. There is no magic wand to make these feelings go away quickly. Healing cannot be rushed, but it will take place. Attempts at self-numbing through alcohol and other substance abuse, sexual promiscuity, cult hopping, seeking a quick fix by joining another potentially destructive group, and suicide attempts only extend the period of denial, delay healing, and compound the problems. Cognitive difficulties involving awareness and judgment are common among former cult members. In this chapter, we describe some of the major cognitive difficulties and challenges encountered by former members. And in the next chapter, we outline some useful exercises and aids to help you overcome them. As you identify the mechanism of influence and control that were used in your particular situation, you can learn to disarm their unwanted, lingering psychological effects. I have been reading from Take Back Your Life by Janja Lalich and Madeline Tobias. I'm now in Chapter 7, Taking Back Your Mind, and I will proceed further in this very interesting chapter in subsequent lockdown live streams. But it's time to bring in my partially clothed panel of lockdown live stream co-hosts. I'm joined by Naomi, Arthur, Sherry, and Sasha. Welcome all.
Hello, hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Good day,
I've already lost one.
down under.
So who have I lost? I've lost Sherry.
Oh.
Is Sherry?
No, she's there.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Okay. For some reason, I can't see her on my side, which would indicate yeah, there's a spinning circle.
Oh, spinning circle of death.
Yes, indeed. How the
We've
heck?
got her. Good. How's everyone's pandemic? Yeah.
I'm just going. Look, I am going to eat my toast while you all tell me how you're doing. I don't care. Just I need you to talk at this point.
Lloyd, is it crunchy or smooth? Just answer that at least.
This is very crunchy, I must say.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the peanut butter is smooth.
Okay.
The toast is very hard and crunchy, but I don't mind because I'm hungry.
I thought real men ate crunchy peanut butter. Wasn't that the criterion that we?
I won't be peanut butter shamed by you, Sasha.
Equal rights for all consumers of all condiments. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Oh dear. It's great to have everyone back again. Yeah.
Yes. Especially this weekend.
Arthur, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Why
I
can't
can
you
hear you. I can hear you.
Too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably because Sasha's earphones are doing some nasty stuff. But actually, I'm really happy because I've had a very exciting experience this Saturday morning. Because Lloyd already knows, but the Croatian brothers were in for a treat by brother Mark Sanderson himself. And I've been virtually to Zagreb and watched the very special meeting broadcast throughout Croatia, Serbia, and Bosnia, and I guess also Montenegro was invited. 7,000 people were attending the live stream on Zoom, and Mark Sanderson released the revised edition of the New World Translation in Croatian, Serbian Latin, and Serbian Cyrillic. That was such an exciting and spiritually uplifting treat
Isn't it
from
charming?
the faithful slave.
isn't it charming to see him get so excited about it?
It really is.
So
It's
yeah,
almost like he was a real Jehovah's Witness at some point. I can't believe he wasn't.
I kind of think he wants to be, Naomi, between you and me. But yeah, so there was this. There was supposed to be a visit by a governing body member, and obviously that visit had to happen virtually as opposed to in person, which was the original plan. I was originally thinking about somehow making it there because I thought, how many opportunities do I get to share a room with a governing body member? But it happened virtually instead. And what we managed to do was get Arthur Zoom links so that he could actually watch along, and we recorded the whole thing, even though there were reminders not to record. So, oops. Got the whole meeting. Although it must be said, Arthur, there wasn't too much controversial stuff said during the meeting.
No. It was the standard Bible release program, which is outlined in the branch organization manual, and everything went by the book. Even the interviews and videos and Brother Sanderson's talk.
Arthur is excited, says Joel Brown. That's an understatement, Joel. Easy E316. Arthur is way too excited about this. Heidi Kelly says crunchy toast is the best with peanut butter. I agree with you, Heidi. I'm going to say it's agreeing with me this breakfast. But I think, look, I'm really excited by the addition of an extra segment to today's lockdown live stream because we, of course, have Sherry. And this means that we'll be unveiling a new segment that we haven't had before in previous lockdown live streams. No, Sasha, I think you're the one that's having problems hearing people. I think everyone else can hear me.
Yes, definitely. The viewers can hear Lloyd, and even here in StreamYard we can hear Lloyd perfectly.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, of course.
We can hear you.
I just haven't got you, Lloyd. Dear.
Yeah.
Weird.
That is weird.
I'll log out again and try.
That's very weird.
Well, in that case, I think we should get started. Since we can't have the poetry corner just yet, I think we should get underway with a certain section on singing.
The results to come back. I feel okay. I'm sure I'm just being paranoid, and it's.
So I'll just mute Sherry's mic there.
Okay, and let's do some screen sharing and get right into the crux of the matter.
We're getting right into the crux, are we, Arthur?
Yes, of course.
This sounds exciting.
Yeah.
And let's do this song.
Everyone's been missing your songs, Arthur. We've been getting messages saying they're desperately.
Do we have any music?
We have music, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No haters below us. Above us on the sky. Imagine all the witnesses living for today. Imagine there's no countries or lands. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm an activist, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if the governing body can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing in the ministry. Ooh. You may say I'm a dreamer, but Lloyd Evans is here too. I hope someday they'll join us, and the world will be free as new.
Well, that was very definitely some singing, and
It was.
and there was a switching between registers, which was very out
There was a
of the
melody.
out of the
yeah.
box stuff. Can you
There were
just
some
repeat?
words.
Can you just repeat the? Can you just repeat that? Because
The
that
problem
took me
is
by surprise.
my throat is really.
Ah,
That's the problem.
That sounds like an excuse,
No.
Arthur.
are you coming down with coronavirus symptoms? Is that what's
No,
affecting you?
I guess it's some Jacksonian Morrisos with
That was very
Lex
good.
something.
Arthur, I think you just started a bit high, you know? I think,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
you were paused.
I was singing on my original voice when I used to sing this, but apparently lately I can't hit the high notes.
Ah,
All these years of drugs and rock and roll have taken their toll on your singer's voice. It's
Yeah,
yes.
sex and
Years
drugs
of
and rock
excess.
and roll actually.
Yeah,
Years of
yeah.
excess have caught up.
But we're on an ex Jehovah's Witnesses video, so no sex except
No.
because it's
Not
Well,
unless you're married.
it's frowned
Come on.
upon unless you're married, of course.
that would certainly shake things up on the lockdown live stream, and probably end up with me having my channel taken from me. So
Yeah.
let's just park that idea right off camera. And okay, so
Amazing.
let's
Well done,
have-
Arthur.
let's just have a little bit more sophistication and culture as we veer off at a complete tangent into Sasha's Poetry Corner.
Well, I received several messages from people saying that because we've missed a few live streams for various reasons, that they expect 3 today. So I have prepared a couple, but I also have had one submitted to us by a friend of the show, John Lambert, who sent this through. And I'll share it first. It's his little limerick. There is a GB member called Stephen. Rank and file's money he's thieving. A face made of clay, preaching the last day. No wonder people are leaving.
Oh, I like that. I do like that.
That was very good, John. Thank you for setting that one in. That was really good. And then I've got sort of a fun one, and then I've got a bit of an encouraging one. So, what do we want to go with? Do we want a second one?
I say we go all the way.
All right. We go all the way. Okay. Let me give something nice and positive and uplifting. This was one that came to me the other day. All right, bear with me. Our former way of life has seriously been tested. We're all facing challenges, but will we be bested? Will we succumb and crumble with fears, maybe get overcome or be reduced to tears? It's actually okay to react as we must, to question our lives, to challenge our trust in all things we thought were never to change, to see all our lives and be made to rearrange. Because now's not the time to fight over issues like stockpiling groceries or hoarding toilet tissues. Now's when we adjust to this new way of living, to nurture qualities of kindness, a spirit of giving. Yes, know that we all can play a big part to grow with humanity, with love in our heart.
Beautiful.
Aww.
Did you write that,
Thank you.
Sasha?
Yeah, I did. But
Very
I
nice.
got a bit tongue-tied there with hoarding toilet tissues. That's a bit of a tongue twister, that one. Hoarding toilet tissues.
If you don't mind me just breaking off a moment, Sherry, talk us through the creative process that Sasha went through for coming up with that poem, and how much it may have or may not have impacted on you.
Oh, well, it's exactly as you would suspect.
Right.
There's a lot of
Him
running
sitting.
around the house.
What I'm imagining is him sitting up bolt upright in the middle of the night, saying, "I've got to write down this line."
That's exactly right.
Something like that. Something will occur to him, and then all of a sudden there's a flurry, and then he's scribbling it down on paper and coming up to me and, "What do you think of this? And what about that? And how about this? And what rhymes with this word at all?"
Thank you for that insight, Sherry. It's like the making of after watching the actual movie. So that's brilliant. Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, we've got to give people what they want, even if it is corny little words put together. But if it makes someone smile, I'm all down for that. I don't care.
Exactly.
Do we want a third one?
Yeah, let's go.
Yes,
let's
please.
go for the third. Yeah.
All right.
Tony Moore is the third.
Well, it's kind of up with that. All right. As COVID-19 cases continue to rise, we've heard a world leader openly surmise that warm weather and bright light will likely kill it. But his best suggestion yet, yes, the surefire hit, is to take doses of bleach and disinfectant to put it in the body, yes, have it injected, because the free world leader, the commander-in-chief, is increasingly dangerous with every press brief. Oh, he meant it sarcastically, he tried to excuse. Just a way to test the reporters of the so-called fake news. But the reality is, sadly, it's painfully clear that the man holding power that a minority revere could be responsible for deaths of many people old and young, because he just can't shut up and get control of his tongue.
Ooh, interesting. So yes, just a reminder to those watching that injecting oneself with household cleaning products is not a recommended way to deal with the current pandemic. So please don't ever do that.
Have you heard that there's people actually phoning 911 in the States with ingestion of chemicals? Well, sadly, it's actually happened.
Well, when you first hear that news, you think, well, fortunately, no one is going to be stupid enough to follow that advice. And then almost immediately you think, oh, hang on. No, actually, some people will follow that advice. So it will be interesting to know what, if any, deaths end up being attributed specifically to people following that course of action. Would that even be counted? Would we get a death toll from people doing that? So,
and does it count as a coronavirus death?
Oh,
yeah, that's interesting. I suppose you need to be strict on that and say, is it caused by the pathogen? If so, it's a coronavirus death. But you could. I know what you mean. It's linked to the whole crisis, isn't it? Yeah. Interesting.
But I guess they are checking even the dead individuals to see whether they had or not the coronavirus inside them.
Jay Proctor saying poison calls are up by crazy numbers in the States.
Wow.
Easy E316 says,
It
Sasha,
was.
that was an outstanding third poem.
Yeah, it was really
Thank
good.
you.
You can see when you're passionate about it,
Mm.
Sasha, that it all comes out through your rhyming words.
Yeah,
Thank you,
that was
thank
the
you.
icing on the cake, actually.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, thank you. And I know we have to be respectful of everyone's views. So, and I do understand the need for respecting one another's views, but this was done more as a bit of a humorous thing rather than a particular political statement. But because if we can't laugh about these things, what can we do? Life's so serious at the moment. We've got to have a little bit of humor. And yeah.
So, speaking of humor, we do have an ex-JW comedian among us, and what Naomi has agreed to do is take us through a particular segment that we're calling Naomi's Bible Box.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with this, but
Naomi's Bible Box. Apologies again for the dancing builders. I was a bit distracted when I was making that intro segment. I will create a better intro for it. So
I don't think you need one. I suggest that everyone wears a hard hat before entering this segment.
okay.
Good. Okay, great. So this is where I pitch to you a TV show idea that I think has got some legs based on the Bible. So this week we are looking for a show called Whale Tank. I think you kind of get the idea. Contestants will have 3 minutes to pitch their ideas on how they would survive inside a whale for 3 days and 3 nights. A panel of 5 very large whales decide if they want to swallow the contestant based on their idea. The whales listen to the pitch, evaluate the ideas, usually looking for a fault. So they're asking questions such as, is this idea scalable? Or they're doing comments such as, this idea is dead in the water. Or,
I like it.
Thanks. Or not so sure about this idea. Something smells fishy. Okay. It was pretty bad. If no whales are interested, this is important, they say that they're out and the contestant goes home with nothing but their physical well-being. Now, you may not have heard of this show because it's a very old format and only ran for 1 season due to some controversy. Not only had no whale chosen to swallow a contestant during the series, but further investigation showed that only one of the whales could actually have been capable of swallowing a human whole, and that is the sperm whale. And that is actually true. They could swallow a human whole. And unfortunately, this has led to years of misunderstanding. It turns out that a sperm whale can swallow a human, not that a human should swallow. Well, anyway, I think. That's it. That's the pitch.
Nicely dodged there at the end.
Well, I've heard some rumors though that after this format was canceled by one of the major American networks, it was picked up by a British network under the title "The Lion's Den," and it was the same investment reality show. And actually, in the
Arthur,
Romanian
you
version
already have your segment. You don't get to hijack Naomi's.
The Romanian version of the Shark Tank is Imperiul Leilor, the Empire of the Lions. And actually in Britain they made this Bible-based investment show as the Lion's Den, and actually there were 5 lions who were getting
Dragon's Den.
Dragons
in Britain.
Yeah.
Now,
I
if we
know,
could combine,
but I was
Lions.
adapting it biblically to the story of Daniel. You know,
I love it.
we're moving from Jonah to Daniel, from the little prophet to major prophet. It's
smooth.
everything raising, you know, raising the stakes and everything.
Thank
it's
you,
more.
stakes. Now, I really like this idea, and we could actually have maybe a crossover show from your one that you suggested on the last lockdown.
spin-off.
Naomi, you know. Yeah, a spin-off. You know, depending on, you know, those that might be into eating certain foods, and whales have been known to cross the plates of certain people at certain times. We could maybe combine those two shows together, where we could have the whales that reject the show brought onto your previous suggestion.
That would be great. The Great Whale Bake Off.
Oh.
It's got
that is
potential.
interesting stuff,
It's got
yeah.
potential for sure.
So no, but interest. I mean, just to kind of drag it on to, because people do take this story literally, of course.
yeah.
And when they did the drama at, I think it was the Be Courageous convention 2018, they depicted it as a whale shark, and I spent a little bit of time talking about how anatomically it's impossible to get swallowed by a whale shark. The worst you could expect is to spend maybe a few seconds in its mouth, but its throat, its esophagus is just simply too small for any human to get down it. But even if you were to end up in the stomach of a whale, the stomach acids would do their job pretty quickly, apart from the lack of oxygen, of course.
So, Lloyd, that's true. What they said is that, I mean, I wasn't joking about the sperm whale. Apparently, it's the only thing with a throat big enough that could take a human, but it's like it could, you know, there's no room in there to sort of sustain yourself for 3 days. But apparently, there was talk of someone else who, like a sea tail of another guy that apparently was swallowed by a whale and was spat out and just came out all white, you know, and he had lost his eyesight. So
that was just an old wives' tale, was it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the Bible's account is true. You know, yeah.
Well, that's the difference, Sasha.
Yeah, even those that wish to believe the Bible or perhaps still, you know, are Christians, will look at the story of Jonah and the whale and look at it as an allegory or some teaching point or something that we can gain a principle from. And it seems ridiculous that it's really only ones like Jehovah's Witnesses and other fundamentalists that think that it literally happened. You know, along with a worldwide flood and fire raining from heaven and Sodom and Gomorrah and all of these things. Other Christians are more balanced with their view and just think that it was a story put in there to teach us a lesson. Yeah.
Well, and what they end up saying, of course, is, oh well, it's a miracle. God can make anything happen, even if it's anatomically impossible for a whale to swallow a human. God can make it happen, so that that's what happens. But the thing is, at some point, and I make similar arguments when it comes to Noah's flood, at some point you've just got to ask the question, why not cut out the middleman? If Jonah needs to get from point A to point B, just beam him there. Or if God needs to wipe out all of humankind apart from a particular family, why have all of the theatre and drama of a worldwide flood that can't happen? Why not just make everyone drop dead apart from Noah and his family?
Well, exactly. And like the irony with this, even with this story, is that Jonah was meant to go and warn a city that was going to be destroyed, that it was going to be destroyed. He didn't want to go. God did this, had him swallowed, had him spat out again. He went to warn them. Then God had a change of heart, decided not to destroy the city. So all of this happened, and Jonah got pissed off at the end, and then God got pissed off with Jonah for being pissed off about what had happened to him. It's like it didn't even result. You know, the whole thing was just a sort of like a no-show. Sadly.
And there was a bottled plant.
Don't find fault with God, though, because it was Jonah's fault, it was the people's fault, it was the whale's fault, it was everybody else's fault. That was You know, that was one of the things when we talked to a family member of ours that Sherry will confirm, when he asked us, how come we can't take those passages of the Bible seriously? And I looked at him and said, do you honestly think the world was consumed by a flood. Do you honestly think somebody went inside the belly of a whale? And they do, sadly.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So, quite a few comments there. Andy Mackey saying, would Jonah have to cook what he found in the whale over a fire made of dung? We're shaking things up at this point.
I like that.
Um,
And can we say aloha to Andy in Hawaii? Yeah.
Yes, aloha, Andy.
And Easy E316, God had a good time messing around with Jonah. I think that was pretty much the point of the story, actually.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
here's the poor guy who's just totally being messed around at this point by the creator. You know,
I guess the point of Jonas being inside the whale for 3 days was actually a type of Jesus staying in the grave.
fortunately, we seem to have lost
lost
audio just at the point where he was starting to be triggering. So, yeah.
Yeah, our viewers missed my triggering remarks, I bet.
So anyway, it's time for a new segment. And so, Sherry, just a heads up, it is time for Sherry's Comfort Corner. However, I made your intro at the same time as I made Naomi's intro. I was a little bit distracted. I got a little bit confused as to whether it was Sherry's Comfort Corner or Sherry's Fear Corner. I'm not going to lie.
Oh dear.
And so what we ended up with is a little bit of a mishmash, and I'm not proud of it. But here goes.
Okay.
Sherry's Comfort Corner.
Oh my God.
There's that damn whale.
Yeah, again, I just got a bit confused as to whether it was comfort or fear, and I don't know. I can't explain it. Again, not one of my proudest moments as a video editor.
This intro reminds me of footage from the upcoming New World and Paradise.
I don't know what footage you've been watching, Arthur, but there we go.
Oh dear. Well, with such an introduction, we definitely need what I was going to start with anyway.
Can you just comfort us at this point, because we're all a bit traumatized?
So I was going to start the segment with let's do some breathing exercises. And I think because we've just been so triggered and terrified, we need breathing exercises more than ever. So everybody, last time I talked about box breathing. I'm just going to run through what it is, and then we are going to do this together. So box breathing is first you let out all the air in your lungs to the count of 4, and then you keep your lungs empty to the count of 4. Then breathe in, inhale for count of 4, and hold again, and then you repeat. So we're going to do this 3 times. So lungs empty out now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Again, exhale. Now I'm going to shut up talking. You can count in your head because I want to do this breathing too. Exhale.
Inhale, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4.
Hold.
2, 3, 4.
Exhale.
2, 3, 4.
Hold.
2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4.
Exhale.
2, 3, and 4.
Thank you, Arthur. Now, on that, what Arthur was just doing there, you can change the counting to a different type of mantra that can be very positive. So you can say things to yourself of, I feel so calm while you're counting the words instead. And that is a positive reinforcement while you are breathing. Or even, I'm here right now, which is kind of a bit of a mindfulness technique as well. So how does everybody feel now after having doing that breathing? Does change things, doesn't it? It just makes you feel a lot calmer. So that's why I wanted to start the segment that way, which was rather appropriate with a shark. Mindfulness, though, is something very interesting that I'm still learning a lot about, but it's a really excellent technique to focus on what is in the present, and it also teaches you to observe your inner emotions without judging them. And I think for ex-witnesses, that is a very powerful thing that we all need to try to learn, because we've come from an organization that excels at thought control, where you criticize yourself for how you think and how you feel. So learning mindfulness techniques really helps counter that programming. So I've been learning a lot about that lately, and there are a lot of apps out there that can help you start to do or practice mindfulness techniques. One of the ones that I really enjoy using is Waking Up with Sam Harris. And you just Google that. Just Google Waking Up with Sam Harris and it will come up with the app. And he talks you through from beginners on how to practice mindfulness. And I really have found it extremely helpful, so that when I'm not feeling quite myself, I can practice a bit of mindfulness and examine what is it that I'm not happy with, how am I actually feeling, and to do that in a safe way without judging the fact that I'm feeling that way. So I thought I'd share that with you. And then I have one final thing to share, which is also extremely relevant for ex-witnesses. And this is something that I've been learning about through my psychologist, actually. I've been seeing a psychologist for a little bit to help with a various few things. And one of the things he encouraged me to do some research on is self-compassion. So I'm going to read a little bit about self-compassion to you. There is a doctor of psychology who has studied this, and she's compared self-compassion with self-esteem. It's not the same thing. It really does. It's beautiful to think about this. And knowing that for ex-witnesses, the way we judge ourselves is extremely harsh. I'm just going to read these 3 paragraphs to you, and that will be the end of Sherry's Comfort Corner for today. So, definition of self-compassion. Having compassion for oneself is really no different than having compassion for others. Think about what that experience of compassion feels like. First, to have compassion for others, you must notice that they are suffering. If you ignore that homeless person on the street, you can't feel compassion for how difficult his or her experience is. Second, compassion involves feeling moved by others' suffering so that your heart responds to their pain. The word compassion literally means to suffer with. When this occurs, you feel warmth, caring, and the desire to help the suffering person in some way. Having compassion also means that you offer understanding and kindness to others when they fail or make mistakes, rather than judging them harshly. Finally, when you feel compassion for another, rather than mere pity, it means that you realize that suffering, failure, and imperfection is part of the shared human experience. There but for fortune go I. Self-compassion involves acting the same way towards yourself when you are having a difficult time, fail, or notice something you don't like about yourself. Instead of just ignoring the pain with a stiff upper lip mentality, you stop to tell yourself, this is really difficult right now. How can I comfort and care for myself in this moment? Instead of mercilessly judging and criticizing yourself for various inadequacies or shortcomings, self-compassion means you are kind and understanding when confronted with personal failings. After all, whoever said you were supposed to be perfect? You may try to change in ways that allow you to be more healthy and happy, but this is done because you care about yourself, not because you are worthless or unacceptable as you are. Perhaps more importantly, having compassion for yourself means that you honor and accept your humanness. Things will not always go the way you want them to. You will encounter frustrations. Losses will occur. You will make mistakes, bump up against your limitations, fall short of your ideals. This is the human condition, a reality shared by all of us. The more you open your heart to this reality instead of constantly fighting against it, the more you will be able to feel compassion for yourself and all your fellow humans in the experience of life. So that is my big, warm virtual hug to everybody today.
Wonderful. Very prescient words there, Sherry. Thank
That was
you.
great.
Thank you.
And I agree definitely
That's beautiful.
about the parts about self-compassion, which it must be said. I mean, we missed one show due to Deanna's birthday, but we missed another show just purely because, well, I had a lot of work with the Polish Exodus editing. And I suppose I could have done both, but it was really to do with what you were saying there about self-compassion and being realistic with what one can actually do. So yeah, I'm trying to I'm going to try and keep this show kind of going as long as I can. But I feel that in order to keep it going as long as I can, I need to not burn out and not commit to doing more than I can realistically do. So with that in mind, the lockdown live stream for May will go down to 2 shows per week. One at this time on a Wednesday and one on a Saturday at the usual time. So that's going to be the schedule for May. Hopefully you guys can join for most, if not all, of those shows.
That's perfect.
Good.
And I think
is.
that's really wise to recognize our limits. You don't have to push everything and try and fit everything in. And everybody who's been enjoying the lockdown live streams is very understanding of how busy your schedule is. So that's no problem at all.
You know, this attitude also reflects the attitude the governing body.
Unfortunately, we've lost Arthur's audio there, just as he was starting to get triggering. Rianne says, we usually are much harder on ourselves if we have a tendency to be very compassionate to other people and very judgmental. Thank you, Sherry.
I really had
That's
a very
very
uplifting comment because the slave had reduced our requirements for regular, auxiliary, and special pioneers throughout the years. So we had 150 back 40 years ago for special pioneers. Now it's been reduced to 120.
Beautiful.
From 90 to 70 and so on, and now auxiliary pioneers can have 30 hours in certain months when there is memorial or circuit overseer visits and so on. So it's
Arthur, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but you're trying to say that the governing body is compassionate by reducing the hours. Do you think they could show a little bit of compassion to children who have suffered terribly and they could do something about protecting children? Then I would say they were compassionate. Until then, don't mess with me, Arthur.
Oh, yeah, don't mess
Moving
with
swiftly on, Nesbo9 on Twitch says, this is lovely, Sherry. I'm going to try that box breathing. Lockdown can be tense. I think that will help.
Yeah, Google it.
Greg Harley says, isn't it so grand that outside this weird organization, this comes completely naturally to us normal, good people? And let's see here. Mike Mesher says, received with thanks. Sherry.
Hello, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Yep. Julia
to have you with
Dasmin
us.
says, just joined to hear Sherry talking about hugs. Lovely. Julia's dog apparently still struggling there with some lack of
Fast
being
asleep.
Yeah. Let's hope that's what it is. Yeah.
It took me a minute. I
Box
have to say.
breathing.
We're assured by Julia that her dog isn't dead, that it is just practicing mindfulness or
That's
something
right.
like that.
That's right. We
Um,
can learn. Actually, that's a good point. We can learn a lot as humans from our pets, our dogs, our cats. They don't get stressed. They don't try and be too busy. They don't try and cram too much into their day. They're not worried about what others think. They're just happy. They're present. They enjoy life. They're content with the small things. Maybe we should all be a bit more like dogs and cats.
Bob Oak also on Twitch saying, Nesbo9, it's lovely to see good, positive you in here again after a couple of days of going without everyone's company. Well, that's really what the lockdown live streams are for, just an opportunity for us to all come together. Obviously, there are now, there's now 68, 70 watching, a combined audience on Facebook and Twitch, and it's an opportunity, I guess, for people to just come together in a self-isolation situation and enjoy a bit of companionship. So
and encourage ourselves to love and good works.
You know,
anyway,
I wanted to
and
ask you
Nespo9
something.
saying, absolutely, Lloyd, we all appreciate what you do so much, but you need to look after yourself and your family. You need a break. Well, that's what I'm trying to do, just manage myself. What were you going to say, Sasha?
Well said. No, I was just thinking that because this is all about being positive, and I think the whole change of circumstances that we've had with the lockdown situations around the world, with the change of situations to accommodate the coronavirus, I think it's helped us all to maybe reframe what it is that defines us. I know for me this has certainly been the case. I'd be interested what you guys think too, that, you know, we used to almost wear it as a badge of honor that we were busy. If people would say, how are you? Oh, I'm busy, I've got a lot on, or I'm doing this, almost as if being busy defined our self-worth or our value, that the busier we were made us I don't know, more important. We were anxious to get everything fit into our days. We had so many appointments, so many things to do. But by force of this situation, we've realized that it's actually okay to not be busy, and that it's okay to take time out of our day and just reevaluate what's actually important to get done, and that being busy doesn't equal our value as humans, or our self-worth is not defined by what we do. It's more who we are as a person. And I definitely think this has helped me to be more mindful of being productive, not just in the things we accomplish, but in the way that we accomplish things and who we are as people. Anybody else found similar thing because their schedules have been affected by pure shutdown situations?
I mean, definitely, Sasha, because I was employed for the whole of my life up until only a couple of weeks ago, so about 4 weeks ago. I knew it was coming, and it wasn't coronavirus related, but the timing was bad. So I was meant to go traveling, and now obviously that wasn't going to happen. So yeah, God, so much of my identity was caught up with work and what I did at work, and what my title is, even though that was never a big thing for me, just to have a title, like just to say this is what I do, and to be productive. So yeah, that's been a real roller coaster. In some ways, I'm loving not having that identity, and then in other ways, I just wonder, you know, what am I here for? Like, what am I here to be actually doing? And then that gives you a different perspective on how you spend your time. And yeah, like I say, I think overall it's positive. And just some days are not so great, and other days you're like, God, I should have stopped working for the hours that I've worked sooner. So for sure, it's a very weird time, and a period of self-reflection.
Yeah, that's a good point. Self-reflection.
I'm really liking the humanity, the humanness, the compassion that everybody is showing to one another, that when you're doing your daily chores, you go into the grocery store or the pharmacy, that everybody, well, this has been my experience thus far, everybody's very respectful. They're standing where they need to stand, enough distance, but we're all looking at each other and we're talking to one another, and there's more interaction now than there was before. It's not so much strangers that you don't talk to, it's recognizing we're all humans in this together, and we're only going to get through this together. So even talking to people as they walk by in the street, I'm really loving that. I feel more connected now, even though I'm missing physical contact. I'm missing not being able to hug and touch people. I feel more connected to strangers than I have before, which is odd, but they're my observations.
That's a good point, Sherry. I think because people are recognizing that stress manifests itself in different ways for different people. And, you know, some people, the anxiety that they feel can actually be channeled into a good supportive thing on behalf of those that are around them. And it's actually made us more mindful as a society to look for how we can show compassion and kindness and support to the people going through it. And yeah, I think that's definitely a good thing. It's almost like we're harnessing the anxiety, but using that anxiety for a positive end result for the community and people around us.
And what I really love about that is that for me, that's extremely validating. Having left a religion that says that the world is wicked, I love this feeling amongst humanity right now because it proves that wrong. It proves it wrong. The very fact that organizations, countries have gone into lockdown like this is testament to the fact that mankind has decided that human life is important and that human life is more important than economics. And that I find incredibly inspiring and encouraging. If we can unite like this, despite our differences, despite politics, culture, religion, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but it gives me cause for hope that we can get through things that are really, really difficult if we just stick together.
Yeah, Mike Mesh is saying, let's hope it continues when this is all over, Sherry.
I hope so.
Heidi Kelly says, I definitely feel way more relaxed. I was laid off just before all this happened, so I don't feel rushed to find a job. So I have been doing lots of arts and crafts. Joelle Brown likes that the earth is regenerating.
Totally.
So, yeah. Heidi says, I have noticed that there is way less smog. Yeah, we're seeing those photographs, aren't we, of cities with no smog, it seems. So, yeah. I guess I would agree. I do worry, though. I mean, I feel as though I'm in quite a privileged situation in that my work is pretty much, well, it's not entirely unaffected. But for the most part, it can just continue. I mean, I was already working from home. I'm continuing to work from home. If anything, I'm working more through this pandemic because I'm doing the lockdown live streams. I do worry about people who've been laid off. And I can imagine if I were doing like a 9-to-5 job and I'd been laid off, I'd be thinking, well, it's all very well people kind of laughing and joking about having all this time on their hands, and oh look, I'm setting up a thing where a ball goes around the room and knocks over dominoes, and that's I don't have any money and I have an empty fridge, you know. So I suppose that would be I'm trying to be as mindful as possible of people in that situation. I don't know whether that's something that anyone in the chat is thinking about.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point.
It's a good point. And also because the whole way it felt like something that was going to last a month. I mean, this is just to me. Maybe others were a bit more onto it. But initially it was like, it'll pass. And then, okay, maybe it's 3 months. And then the more you look at it and you think about from an employment perspective, that does start to feel longer and longer. So I think even if you were okay-ish at the beginning and thought, oh, well, this will pass and something else will come up, you know, sort of left to your own thought process, you can sort of go down a little bit of a rabbit hole. I feel very lucky in that I've got somewhere to live, and I'm sure others are in, much more desperate situations and not necessarily being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Poor use of words, but to be able to go, okay, well, at that stage, everything should be okay. So yeah, I think you're right.
So we have a voicemail.
Ew.
So let me just try and get this set up.
Hello, Lloyd and Sasha and Sherry and Arthur and Kimmy and Naomi and Mark. In no particular order, I just wanted to say hi to everyone. I'm really, really, really enjoying the coronavirus lockdown live stream. You guys are great. You're making this time that we're going through go by a lot better and funnier, and it's just great to be able to connect with XJWs. My name is Maria. I actually have messaged with Arthur back and forth, but I'm also friends on Facebook, I believe, with most of you. I know definitely Sherry and Sasha, but anyway, I just think you guys are great. I'm in New York, so I will be listening to this tomorrow, I believe, at 3 p.m. But it's Sunday night, 10:38 p.m. So everybody have a great night. Love you guys. Keep entertaining us with all your lively skits. I love the Bible box. Naomi's new skit with the bread baking, quite interesting. So hope to talk to you guys another time. And again, this is Maria M. And I'm an XJW. And it's been a hard time getting to where I am now. But thank you all for the great support. Talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Maria.
Yeah,
Thank you, Maria.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lots
not
of love
alone,
for
Maria.
the Bible box, for Arthur, for everyone, really. So it's nice to
That's
get that
beautiful.
message. Lovely.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
And we know that, ones are going through really difficult situations. I imagine New York would be another world altogether to try and comprehend living there. We really feel for you living in that situation, Maria.
Well, I know I'm a friend with a surgeon who's in New York, and she's on the front lines and had her father, who was ill with coronavirus, and her uncle both hospitalized in the same hospital that she worked in. So fortunately, she was able to visit them. Her father's been discharged, but her uncle is getting worse. And just hearing what she's passing on and telling us, I can't imagine how difficult it is for them. The healthcare workers on the front lines in those areas, my goodness, it's really hard.
Yeah. I saw briefly, I think it might have been a Vice piece on New York. Apparently Queens is a very badly affected area. And yeah, it really isn't nice. They were showing refrigerated trucks all lined up to make a makeshift morgue. Really, really unpleasant to see what's happening there. And, those of us who've been to New York, well, I guess you don't have to go to New York to see how densely populated it is. And it kind of makes sense that, a disease like coronavirus would just go on the rampage there. So really, really sad to see. Andy Mackey says, it's nice seeing the local community coming together to help take care of each other. I think, that's definitely been a positive.
And Andy sees that because, Lloyd. Andy would see that too because he's on the front line as a postal worker, and he's been working right through this whole situation, taking care of everybody in the community. And thanks, Andy, for keeping everything going because the work that you do is imperative to keeping a society going.
Yeah. And Easy E316 says the food bank near me has a very long line every morning and they run out of stuff by lunchtime every day. Yeah, I really would hate to be in a situation where I needed to use a food bank at a situation like this.
Yeah.
When, I would imagine there's lots of demand for it and it's probably more stressful to practice the social distancing in that situation. Marilla Pink says, hi, Lloyd, my hubby got made redundant 1 week into our lockdown. You see, this is what I was talking about. I really struggle. I can imagine it being just the whole lockdown situation being not funny when you're in that situation.
Yeah.
It's a pretty bad feeling, and applying for jobs is challenging due to my chronic health situation. His income is our only support. So yes, it's pretty stressful. Very sorry to hear that, Marilla. Yeah. I can only say that we're with you in spirit, and we hope that just by being here with us on the lockdown live stream and in the comments, people, hopefully people can express some solidarity there and be there with you in spirit, if nothing else. But yeah, it must be very, very difficult in that situation.
Yeah. We can understand why people are very desperate to get back into work and to get the economy going. We totally get it. I just want to share one paragraph that was sent through from a financial and medical institution here in Australia. When they were talking about the effects on the economy and the necessary reason why we're having the lockdown, they also acknowledged the fact that this is causing a great deal of distress. There's no easy way to sugarcoat that. But they said, we're now in the lockdown phase. It's a bit like chemotherapy. In an effort to keep the broader population safe, the government is effectively poisoning the economy in the short term by requiring that everyone stay at home and thus triggering a likely recession. This is very unfortunate, but it's a necessary trade-off. Understandably, financial markets are hurting, at least in the near term. However, we do chemotherapy with sick patients not because we like it, not because it's pleasant, but because it works often and sometimes cures the patient, albeit with a lot of negative complications. We can't avoid the economic pain in the near term, but we do have tools to fight and try and get back to health in the long term. I just thought it was an interesting way to put it. Chemotherapy is not pleasant, but it's there for a reason. And maybe that's why we have to poison our economy in the short term for long-term gains.
Well, there's just no win-win scenario when you're dealing with a global pandemic. And, you know, in the current kind of, you could say, globalized marketplace, this is totally unprecedented, because the only thing that has come close to it historically is the 1918 Spanish flu, and the world was a completely different place back then. So the times we're living in are unprecedented, and there's just no way of navigating this situation without some degree of pain, unfortunately. And I think we need to brace ourselves for the reverberations of this crisis to continue long after it's under control, you know?
I was thinking about that, Lloyd, actually, and thinking, so in 1918, you would never be able to contact friends and family, you know, in the ease that we have. I mean, a lot of us have. I appreciate that not all countries have access to it, but the fact that we can, you know, my brother lives in London. I can just hop on the internet and see him and hear him and feel reassured that he's okay. I mean, back in those times, they just had none of that. Never mind the kind of the medical access that we have now. So it's, yeah, I mean, it's unprecedented, and we're quite lucky in some ways that we are where we are now.
Indeed. Comment here from J. Jeanette Eisenhower. I have personally lost 10 people I knew and very much cared about so far. I think that's what brings things into perspective for me. Yeah. You have people kind of jumping up and down and even protesting in some countries at the inconvenience of the lockdown situation. Well, there's no greater inconvenience than dying or losing people through this coronavirus. And what you routinely see when you hear stories on the news is the relatives pleading with the public, saying, please, please stay at home. I think once you've actually experienced it yourself and you've lost someone yourself, that's when you become an advocate, and a very powerful advocate for the lockdown. So yeah, it's painful. And again, there'll be varying degrees of pain depending on your financial circumstances. But unfortunately, it is necessary.
Yeah, and you know, as for financial circumstances, I think we've all realised that we have to reevaluate what is enough. You know, we've come from a consumer-driven world where we're always looking for the new and the greatest and the latest item, technology, product acquisition. But what do we actually need? Having enough is okay, you know, and food and clothing and shelter, just the basics, and our lives. Isn't that enough at the end of the day? I mean, it doesn't solve the bills, no, but we're going to certainly reevaluate what is enough.
Yeah. Nesbo9 says, I've gone straight from maternity into furlough, and I'm so grateful. We're going to have to carry on pulling together through this and beyond. Mike Mesher says, I cannot wait till we can travel again so we can visit our son Colin. Yes. Those who know us are aware of our reasons. We did a little bit of traveling yesterday, and I obviously I feel for Mike. He's had an awful lot
Mike
of
and Colin.
illness to contend with in his family, so that's what he's referring to. And you know, again, you're going to want to be together and see and spend physical time together. I think we had a similar situation with Rianne, didn't we? Where her son was ill and she couldn't, and she was worried about him, and he was in another country. On the traveling side, we are starting to see some of the restrictions lifted here in Croatia. So our family went for a little drive yesterday because we're allowed to travel in our county, and our county is quite large. So we travelled to the bottommost border of our county, which actually borders with Bosnia, and we went to a restaurant on a hill overlooking the Bosnian border, kind of knowing really that it's probably going to be closed, and we ended up being the only ones there. So we went for a little walk around the grounds, and we were on the terrace of the restaurant, which was completely abandoned, like post-apocalyptic, and Jessica pretended to be our waitress, so had a nice little moment there as a family. So we managed to do a little bit of traveling, but again, it's not just literally traveling that people are missing, although that was nice. It's at least in Mike's case and the case of many others, it's wanting to be with loved ones. Matias Soto Ramos says, hello guys, I'm finding online university a really nice thing. It helps a lot being able to rewind, pause, or speed up the classes. I think this situation will change the way education works. Greetings from Germany. Deanna, yeah.
I'm from learning and development HR world. Everyone is suddenly having to get all the courses that normally run face to face and create an online version of it. And I think he's right. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens after this, because as soon as companies realize that they don't have to pay for a room, they don't have to pay for lunch for everyone, and as soon as they start to see that there might be some financial benefit in running things online, I think we'll see some of it, not all, but some of it go that way, which is kind of good. It opens it up for more people, I think.
Indeed. Deanna Moreno says, we've noticed an uptick in robberies recently in our area. Good grief. Yeah. That's the last thing you need, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although it would be difficult, I suppose. I mean, if you are a burglar, you're going to have the issue of most people being home. So, but I suppose some people, when they're desperate enough, they're not bothered about whether people are home or not, are they? Sometimes people will break in anyway, won't they, if they're desperate enough? Marilla Pink says, your lockdown live stream has kept us company and made us laugh. Arthur's singing, Sasha's poems, Sherry's comforts, and of course the comedy. All the regulars have been wonderful. Thank you all. Thank you so much, Marilla.
Thanks, Marilla.
Easy E316 over on Twitch says, very true. I've noticed in my area that the ones that are taking it seriously are those that have been personally affected. Those that haven't been affected and are living in their own bubble are the ones protesting and jumping up and down. Victoria Roberts says, I essentially do the majority of my work from home, but I am finding motivation really difficult because I would take it to a cafe and do it there. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. When you do work from home, you're your own boss, and you have to set your own standards and your own deadlines. And when the whole world is going to pot and there's no way of shaking things up at all by, like you say, going to the cafe and working from there for a bit, I guess it is more challenging to motivate yourself.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I think that's why so many people have provided recommendations that it is vital to form a routine when you're working at home, just as you would have a routine going to work, or the routine might be to go and work at the cafe. But whatever it is, to have a set routine, that if it's getting up, showering, dressing in work clothes, the clothes that you would normally wear when you're doing that particular assignment or job or work, so that it mentally switches us up a gear. Having a set time to maybe stop for lunch, or having a set time to have a walk through the middle of the day if that's possible in your area. But the routine of clothing, presentation, helps the mindset when we go to getting into work throughout the day.
Alicia Giordano says, I do want to give a big thank you to you guys for this live stream. You've helped a lot and have made me smile in this tough time. Margus Nee Jr. says, it's so uplifting to see that worldly people are so caring during this crisis. This helps me keep sane when my JW family is shunning me since February 24th. Yeah, Margus, only recently, you can see they're wearing my Escaped hoodie. He's a patron and only recently did Escape. So lovely to see.
Yeah,
you,
reach out to us on Facebook. Yeah.
Please do. Please do. John Lambert says there is talk of social distancing in bubbles, family groups of 10 in the UK. I hope this is true. Yeah. Whatever. There's talk in the UK, because I'm monitoring the news there, about the lockdown restrictions being lifted or starting to be lifted at some point. I'm still thinking that's premature, to be honest. And again, I suppose I would only be fully comfortable with that happening. It's only really going to be realistic to happen once we have a vaccine, isn't it? Because otherwise you still have a deadly pandemic on the loose that thrives when people are gathering in large gatherings. So yeah, it's
and we're going to want to people are going to overdo we're going to be so much more inclined to hug everybody and spend time with people to play catch up for the time that we've missed, that unless the vaccine is available, that could actually heighten the situation. But by the way, that's John who sent us in our poem. So thank you, John. Thank you.
Anna Coling-Nielsen says, I've regained contact with my 2 sons, no contact for 3 years, but Corona probably changed their thinking. Yeah. Well, you would like to think, wouldn't you, that if in situations where there is shunning and you have like a life or death situation, you would hope that once the whole doomsday excitement has calmed down a little bit, that people will start thinking, well, what if, what if the one I'm shunning dies? Am I happy with the way things were left? Would it not be, reasonable to have some degree of contact? So it will be interesting to see whether people do end up getting reconnected.
So very on that topic, very oddly, so my dad hasn't spoken to me for 20 years. My mother continued to remain in contact sort of during that time. I went round to drop some stuff off for Mum in the house. So I walked in with the stuff, and Dad started speaking to me suddenly, as if nothing had happened. Just started speaking about how hard it was for them to get toilet paper. But even that he wouldn't have done previously, and I just sort of rolled with the punches. That's not a good expression either, but there you go.
No,
no, well done.
Yeah, it just didn't really talk about it and didn't inquire anything. Just sort of left it quite light. But I thought that was weird. That was very weird for him. And so he must be having some either thoughts of his own mortality, which I think it's more like that because he's obviously got older, or, this sort of momentous time has got him thinking about things a bit differently. Or he's getting dementia, and we're seeing it in live. I don't know what's going on, but we're just rolling with it at the moment.
Sure.
Dear.
Yeah, very strange.
Meanwhile, we've got the opposite end of the spectrum with my father, who spends all day shepherding his congregation, calling them all, much to my mother's annoyance, and he won't take the time to even respond to a text message or a phone call from us when we're checking in. So, some people are certainly softening, and some people are hardening up because of this.
Absolutely. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that is sad. Nesbo9 on Twitch says, lots of people are sharing seedlings in my village. I got up yesterday to find some tomato plants on my doorstep. We have some tomato plants in our garden at various stages of development. Well, no, they're all at the same stage of development. It's just that some have been planted in the vegetable patch and some are still in the greenhouse. I don't know what the plans are, whether Deanna's mum is planning to give those plants away or whatever, but it is nice to see that community spirit.
Others are sharing spiritual seedlings in the form of tracts or invitations.
Unfortunately, we have lost Arthur's audio just as he was going into
Arthur
a triggering.
makes a good point, though. Yeah. He does make a good point, though. We've seen the abundance of letters being posted out by JWs because that's their only form of witnessing, where they're putting tract or something in, and of course cashing in on the coronavirus being the sign of the last day. But the spam letter writing that is taking place in communities around the world,
Wasn't there a thing as well, Sasha? We were talking about this in our JW survey WhatsApp group about. Actually, it's been on Twitter as well about activists in Brazil have brought attention to the fact that apparently, I can't confirm this, a letter has gone round to Jehovah's Witnesses in Brazil telling them to just randomly call phone numbers. So they're coming up. Apparently, it's against the law. Well, it should be against the law to cold call. But apparently they figured out that it's not against the law to just randomly try people's numbers. So the idea is that apparently witnesses in Brazil are getting some official instructions to do this for their ministry. I haven't actually seen what I would consider to be an authenticated letter. I've only seen a translation of what's supposed to be instructions going around. So if true, that would be very disturbing, because what would happen then is you would have people being tied up on phone calls when potentially they could be unavailable to receive urgent calls from family members or friends who are dependent on them. So that would be disturbing.
Not to mention the fact that it's just downright rude. If unsolicited things in this day and age are not welcome, whether it be letter or phone call.
But seedlings are okay, I think.
It's presumptuous.
Seedlings of tomato plants or any other kind of plant is okay. So I think.
Agreed.
Can I ask you a question, Naomi?
Yeah.
Your kettle, what's its capacity?
Does it look massive? Is that what's happening?
It looks quite small. I'm guessing that its capacity is 2 or 3 mugs. Can you just resolve my OCD?
Listen, it's got a 6 on the side as the maximum. So I think you underestimate its capability.
It's just the perspective then. Probably it's bigger than it looks.
Yeah, I'm enormous, Lloyd. You just don't realise that's what's going on.
It's a trick of the camera, there.
Yeah.
Objects in camera may appear larger or smaller.
Indeed.
Depending on the perspective, on the lens of the camera, on many other factors.
Would you like me to grab it? I don't know.
Yes, please.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to bug him all day. Otherwise.
That is,
But you mentioned that with
Russell Hobbs, nice make there.
Thank you. I mean, we're not sponsored though, are we? No.
This lockdown live stream has not been brought to you by Russell Hobbs.
Thank you.
But,
yes, good.
No product placement intended.
No.
No, I saw it when I was editing one of the thumbnails recently and thought that's a very tiny kettle. But now that I see it up close, I've been satisfied.
So
I'm going to have to go, guys. Sorry.
Okay, now's a good time to end the show anyway. But just a reminder that the lockdown live stream will be on in May at the usual times apart from Friday. So it's now just Wednesdays and Saturdays. But I want to thank my panel for a wonderful show. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
Usual time apart from Monday, because it was the Monday.
Apart from Monday. Thank you, Arthur. So just the Wednesdays and Saturdays in May. Viewers, I hope you have enjoyed our show. Don't forget to stay inside, stay safe, and stay positive. And we will see you in the next show.